My family is weird. Every family has their little quirks, right? Maybe you have an aunt who indulges a bit too much in her favorite, cheap red wine. Perhaps your dad does a loud exhale after every drink and your mother never says anything, but you can practically see her eyes roll to the back of her head every time he does it. Maybe you have a cousin who recently got out of a long prison sentence for a crime your family refuses to talk about but have accepted him back with open arms so you don't question it. Whatever the case may be, we all have something that makes our families special, right? I'm writing this today because my family has a bit more something to it. For instance, I know some of you may think we're a kind of cult, because we live detached from the rest of society, because we only interact with outsiders when absolutely necessary, because I just use the term outsiders. I want to make it very clear that we aren't a cult. We don't have any sort of fanatic beliefs. Members of our family can come and go as they please, so long as they don't bring any unannounced guests with them. We have a few rules and curfews in place, but it's all for the safety of our family. We're a small and I'd like to think relatively happy community tucked away in the woods. I won't give any specific details about where we are other than it rains a lot. Whether that's because of the state we live in or that land itself, I've never really been sure. We are in the middle of no man's land, miles upon miles away from any sort of civilized society. The closest town alone is a 3-day drive. People occasionally go into town for supplies we can't grow or make on our own, but as you can imagine, we don't get out much. Also, I should probably clarify, I use the term family rather loosely. I mean, that's all I've known for them to be called my entire life, and that's really what it feels like, but there's no gross and family breeding going on here or anything. Hell, half of us don't have the blood to be blood related to anyone. Sorry, that's a little inside joke. Let me get to the point already. We'll start with my actual immediate family. My mother is a witch, not the kind that you see on TV or in movies. She's an honest-to-God witch, one of the healers or medicine women in the family. She's beautiful and kind and caring and the most stubborn person I've ever met. We tend to argue a lot over stupid things, but my dad says it's because we're pretty much the same person. As much as she can really get under my skin, I love my mother more than anything. She uses her magic for many things, like creating holy bullets, but mostly for healing. The first time I remember ever seeing her use her magic was when I was 4 years old. My dad came back from a hunting trip and was rushed into the house by 2 of his friends that had gone with him. There was a lot of racket as my mother quickly told them to put him on the porch so he didn't get a mess all over the house. The 2 men carrying my father seemed panicked as he drifted in and out of consciousness. His head rocked back and forth, his eyes strained to stay open. My mother was so calm though. Curiosity pushed me to follow them outside. When my brother tried to drag me back, and my mother shooed him away and simply smiled at me. "You want to help?" I nodded so excitedly I could have snapped my neck. "Go inside and grab me a large black towel and my medium brown chest from my closet. Be quick about it." I dashed inside as fast as my little legs could move me and grabbed the things she needed me to get. My brother helped me carry out the chest as it was almost as big as I was. My mother gave us both an affectionate pat on the cheek before grabbing the towel and handing it to one of the other men. "Pat, wound down with this to get as much off as you can. We need to be quick. It's almost 9. I looked around my mother to see what was going on. My father's right calf was disgusting. I wanted to vomit, to look away, but I couldn't. It was like a train wreck. You know you shouldn't watch, but you just can't take your eyes off of it. There was a black ooze coming from his leg that looked like a thick inky substance. It was so swollen with lumps beginning to form under his skin. When my father let out a scream of agony, I jumped back only to hear my mother reprimand the man with the towel. I said, "Pat, you dunce." The man quickly apologized as he began patting down the area. With more of the strange fluid gone, I could see what appeared to be a large bite mark on my father's calf. It was severely bruised already and still slowly oozing that strange black fluid. It also smelled awful. The other man that brought my father home had to lean over the railing to puke as the air filled with that rancid scent. My mother took a deep breath as she opened her chest and began chanting something under her breath. Her fingers so diligently began plucking things that I couldn't recognize from the chest. Time seemed to slow as she chanted and mixed these plants and liquids in a little wooden bowl. There was a vibration in the air like an electric current you feel Before a big storm, she ground the ingredients into a sort of opaque paste and began gently spreading it over the wound. His stuttered breathing began to level out slowly as his eyes finally fell shut. The moment was so surreal as I watched her work her fingers delicately and the black ooze stopped flowing. After that, she wrapped his leg tightly in some gauze and let out a soft sigh. Put him on the couch. He'll wake up in about 30 minutes. She called my father out to take the things inside and begin cleaning them before she turned to me. Want to help me make some food? Your daddy's gonna be mad hungry when he wakes up. It was roughly 2 years later that I found out what happened to my father. See, the hunting trips that happen twice a week are a sort of population control for the creatures in the woods around us. It also helps us keep track of their numbers and where their territory is. An attempt to coexist with these things. Usually, they send 4 parties out into the woods to trek and camp out. There for roughly 3 days, my father and his friends were on their way back when they were attacked by what we call a sprinter. They're these human-like things that usually crawl on all fours. They're generally pretty small and incredibly skinny. Honestly, they just look like a severely malnourished person who's never seen sunlight. Their skin is so thin and pale it's almost translucent, the blue veins that stretch their bodies being really the only thing that gives them any color. Generally speaking, they're pretty much harmless, but they're fast as hell and have a nasty venom that causes whatever they bite to immediately start decaying. That horrid smell that came up when my mother was healing my father was his flesh and muscle rotting away. They usually don't attach humans though unless they're desperate or feel threatened. Shining a bright light in their face is enough to send them running as far away as possible. We try not to kill them when we can because, like I said, they're usually harmless. Also, having them around helps warn us of the visitor. Everyone knows when they hear those 3 distinct screams they have exactly 5 minutes to get inside as quickly as possible. Lock all the doors and windows, shut their eyes, and cover their ears. It's not a lot of time, but it's better than no warning at all. Well, this entry is getting long enough. I should get going before I start trembling anymore. Until next time. Lumpy Mattress. I've been struggling to fall asleep. You could blame this on a number of things. My brother's been missing for 3 days now. My parents have been fighting non-stop, and my mattress just isn't what it used to be. Even when the Sandman manages to squeeze me in, I do not get much rest. I wake up sore, with aches and pains. I'd request something newer, even just a memory top, but right now just isn't the time. I'll find a way to deal on my own. I know I'm not the only one in my household fighting demons. I try to stay invisible and not complain or add to tensions. I lay in bed, staring into darkness, shifting around, flopping, and readjusting pillows. Nothing is working. I decide to take a lavender-infused bath. Once I'm finished, I go to change my sheets with fresh linens that are perfumed with Tide. I remove the sheet and reach for the mattress topper. It's old, worn out, and faded yellow. I remember fighting my brother for the topper. As my parents were retiring it, tears began to fill my eyes. Where could he be? Dragging the pillow top, something is unveiled. A crude stitching down the middle of my mattress reveals itself. My eyebrows shift downwards and I glance around as if anyone else was present. Seeing what I was, I hesitate to cut it open, but before I have too much time to consider, I reach for a pair of scissors on my vanity. One by one each stitch pops. Once I'm finished, my hands clamp themselves on each side of the opening and pull them apart. My eyes rest on some kind of plastic material. Squinting I can only see a corner. My fingers pinch what I can reach and tug. The material feels heavy and stuck. My fingers slip a few times before a forceful wrench whips it right out. I fell backwards, onto my mattress, and glanced down at it. I cover my mouth as to muffle my scream. My eyes nearly pop out of my head. My heart beats rigorously. I launch myself to get away, to get the thing off of me. My breathing is unsteady now, as I stare at what appears to be a vacuum-sealed bag with a decaying body inside, a small one at that. An ungodly fluid of rot spiders out like veins inside, replacing the tiny bits of air that were missed. I take a deep breath and slowly move in, an ounce of hope that there was some kind of life still remaining and maybe, just maybe, they could be saved. 2 fingers branch out, and grasp the edge of the bag to flip it over. Chills creep down my spine as it flops to the opposite side. My eyes narrow in on the child's face. I can barely make out identifiable features. My body jerks back at the realization. It seems to be my neighbor's daughter. She's been missing for the past 4 days.